Hi everyone, and welcome to my 3D modeling series. This is going to predominantly feature Solidworks because that's the software that I have access to. However, if something else, maybe Creo or NX or something, that might make an appearance depending on if I can, find somebody who I can use their license or something. Just to kind of maybe compare and contrast some of the different ways of doing things in different softwares. I will be using SolidWorks 2021. It won't really be any different than any of the other SolidWorks any of the other SolidWorks releases since probably about 2015. So you'll notice that mine is using the dark theme, so it will look a little bit different than the stock theme, but it's just cosmetics. Toolbars will be a little bit different, and I'll have some extra icons for like my PDM system, but really it's going to be the same as any real SolidWorks release in the last few years. So before we jump in, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more engineering content, and leave a comment below. What software do you use, and what kind of problems do you have when you're using your 3D modeling softwares? Like, what do you run into? That will give me ideas for future videos to cover. So thanks, and I hope you enjoy this. Today we are going to be Bob Rossing a chess piece. And what I mean by that is we're going to make a chess piece. We're going to focus on something cylindrical today. I think that's a pretty easy place to start. It'll cover a lot of different features, and we'll have a lot of different ways that we can kind of do the same thing. And that's something that I want to really explore in this series, because there's not always one way to do something in SolidWorks, and I think that can become difficult sometimes, because when one person will want to model it one way, that way might not make any sense to somebody else, and they'll want to model it in their own way. And that doesn't mean that one of them is right and one of them is wrong. That just means that, once again, they have found two different ways of doing the same thing in the same program. So that's pretty common. So we are going to Bob Ross this chess piece. We're going to just kind of go with what we feel. There's not going to be any mistakes, just happy accidents as we make a chess piece. So when you think of something like a chess piece, whether it is actually truly a chess piece, or if it's something like a shaft, or maybe it is like a bolt, anything that's a cylindrical piece, there's always going to be two main ways that you could make it. The first way is you can actually take the Extrude tool, and we're going to quickly make a very crude chess piece. You could use the Extrude tool and actually make it out of discs. Oh, that's 5. On to 0.5. You can make it out of discs and like solid cylinders, and like this works. This technically works. And if this is what works the best for you, I mean, it's not technically wrong. There are things about it that make it less than ideal, but if you can make the correct geometry doing it this way, it is technically legal. Now, that said, I mean legal per the software. Your company might have different opinions on how parts should be modeled, and if so, obviously you should follow those. But if you're just starting out, or if you just kind of want to find a new way of doing something, you could always do it like this, and now we've got a pawn. This is a very crude pawn, so let's kind of make it a little bit nicer. What would make this pawn look nicer? Well, if we rounded the head, it would look a little bit more like a real pawn. So let's give it a fillet on top. And let's do a pretty big fillet. Let's do like I don't know, I kind of want the flat top on the top still, versus doing like a full dome. But let's do, maybe, can we do 5/8? Let's do a 5/8 fillet on top. So now our pawn looks, I don't know, still kind of weird. So now let's maybe give it kind of that classic pawn shape, where it will come down a little bit here and then come back out again. And again, we're just going to use the fillet tool, because this is a pretty basic way of making a pawn, and we want this to be a little sharper. So let's do like it's a little too sharp. It's still too sharp. So let's do like 0.5 there, and then we're going to want to kind of get the swoopiness here for the pawn. And this is going to be, whoops, This is going to be where I don't know how well our fillet tool will work for what I would actually like to do. But as you can see, if I give it a 1-inch radius, this is clearly not a 1-inch ledge right here. Radially, this is not 1 inch. So it won't go all the way out here an inch, but it will go up an inch. So I get kind of this nice sweeping, it's kind of sweeping effect. Let's go a little higher. Let's go a little higher still. There we go. That looks good. So now I've got these 2 fillets that make the body of the pawn. This one fillet makes the head of the pawn. And I mean, if you're making like a pretty basic chess set, I mean, this looks okay. This is passable. It actually kind of looks more like a treble piece maybe, or sorry. But I mean, you know, either way, it's a cylindrical piece that we made with extrudes and some fillets. This is a legal way of doing that per Solidworks. It will let you do this. Now, there are perhaps better ways of doing it, more efficient ways. So let's go ahead and delete all of these. And we're going to use the Revolve tool. The Revolve tool is essentially like a lathe, how a lathe would work. Well, a reverse lathe, I guess. You're going to draw the profile of whatever you'd like to make, and then it's going to spin it around an axis. And if you make in your in SolidWorks at least, if you make a construction line or a center line first, I mean you can make it after, you'll be able to actually, it'll automatically choose, if there's only one, it'll choose that center line to revolve around for you, or you can always choose it to revolve around a center line for you. So again, let's do kind of that same basic shape. And we could do it 2 ways. We could actually make kind of like this shape right here. And then we can revolve this. And then we could still use those fillets. But I don't want to necessarily do that. So let's do this, and let's go ahead and make this guy like 0.5. And I need, oh right, I need my overall height. And I say overall height, I could have also given it the height in between here. That is okay as well. I just chose to do overall height, even though in this case, the inside height probably did make more sense. So either way, now our sketch is fully defined. We have one center line here. So when I close this, it will automatically choose to revolve it. A quick note, in case you're making something that isn't actually a full circle, you can tell it to revolve only a certain amount of degrees. So you can make, you know, like a half pawn, whatever you'd like to do, you can do that. But in our case, and I think in most cases, you're probably going to be revolving 360 degrees. So here's that pawn again, and so we could do the fillet thing again and do a fillet here and here to make the body and a fillet on the top, but that's not, again, necessarily the best way of doing something, especially like the body, because there's not a lot of control. But what you can do for that is, I'm just going to make these construction geometry so you can see the difference. And I'm also going to make this a little bit taller, just so we have a little bit more to work with here. If you use something like 2 arcs, they're 3-point arcs, but if you use something like 2 arcs to do what we were doing with the fillet tool, you get a little bit more control, and you can kind of more easily blend these together. So if we put these together so that the points touch, and let's say that we don't necessarily want it to be tangent. We could put this tangent to that. Hey, you guys should be tangent. We can put this point tangent to our original body diameter, but you don't have to. So let's go ahead and get rid of that tangency point. And now the curves are still tangent, but we're not necessarily tangent to the line. And furthermore, if I get rid of that, we're not even stuck on that body line anymore. We could make the pawn have a thicker body or an even thinner body. Let's kind of do this scallop. The pawn's kind of scalloped now. So now we're not constrained by, what this diameter was and how wide it is here. Now we can just kind of dimension it from maybe just the radius. So let's say, okay, 6'2", let's just call it, 625. And what's this guy at? I kind of like that shape. So, okay, so basically 5/8 and 3/4. So now we have those radii set, and, you can still kind of adjust it a little bit, but I actually kind of do like it with it on that line. But just to show you another way we can do this, let's go ahead and put this, let's kind of reverse it this time. Let's go ahead and, these are actually too close. Let's do something else. Let's do not that. So I wanted that one to be smaller, but I don't think I'm going to get that, but that's okay. So let's go here. Let's do you as 3/8, and you are going to be like 1 inch. And all right, there you go. Now we have kind of a more interesting shape. So now we have a far more interesting shape, and I don't necessarily want that to go too far underneath here, so I am going to leave this tangent to right there, but I like this kind of swoop. And with just that radius, this radius, and the fact that this arc needs to be tangent to this line, which is a good use of construction lines, we've got this nice swoop that would have been not possible with the fillet tool because it goes under that diameter right there. For the head of the pawn, let's say we want a full sphere. Well, you can do it with the fillet tool, but it's a little bit easier, I think, if you just use the sketching for the revolve. Once again, I'm going to use an arc, and I'm just going to come up like this and do that, and I'm going to bring this point and this point. They will be tangent, and then this point will be coincident with this line, and we will join those points together. And now I believe we just need to give this guy, oops, not the radius. We need to give it the overall height once again. So we'll just do, yeah, this time we'll actually do an overall height because it makes sense in this case. So we'll do like 2.5, and we're also going to make this a little shorter. Yeah, we'll do like that. And this profile now will be revolved, and now we have our pawn. So that was another way of doing the pawn, and the nice thing about using the revolve to do that is when you look at that sketch, as I was saying, when you look at that sketch, you can actually see kind of what you're going to get relative to your other features. And that's pretty handy when things start getting more complex. There can be dimensioning returns for that. If you start trying to model everything in one sketch, while it is efficient, it can be kind of a pain to later on come back and change things. So sometimes I like to do like exterior features and then interior features as two different sketches. And obviously one would be like a cut revolve as opposed to a regular revolve where it adds material. So let's say now that we like this little pawn, but we want to make something a little bit more complex. That can be done in just the same way. So let's go ahead and actually, we're not going to delete this guy. We're going to work off of this. So let's say we want to make like a king, and so we need to make it taller. So the first thing we want to do is let's say the king's going to be, if the pawn is 2.5 inches, let's say the king's going to be 4 inches tall. And it's not going to let us do that because of our geometry constraints. So the first thing you can do is say, okay, well, what do I not necessarily care about? And I'm just going to say that I don't necessarily care about this radius there. And if I make this 4 inches, it should just stretch that out. Now, when it did that, it just kind of became lawless, and we just have to kind of pull it back to where we want. Sometimes you'll like flip a circle over when it does that, and it's very difficult to get it to flip it back around. And it can be very annoying when SolidWorks does that. This might be a SolidWorks in particular thing, because how it indexes the lines for things like relations when you have other things that attach to them. Sometimes the only way to fix that circle kind of inversion on itself is you have to delete it and draw it again, and then it's a new line, and therefore it's a different relation. And sometimes your later parts will break because of that. So just kind of watch out for that. And if you can, like, hit undo and then try to do it again a different way. It is definitely worth not having to redraw lines when you don't need to, or if you can avoid it, because otherwise it just kind of becomes a large pain in the butt. So now that we have our taller king piece, we want it to have, you know, maybe some extra stuff. This is just kind of a boring king. Like, if this was actually our king, that's pretty lame. What does this look like? Let's say, can I give it like a 3? Yeah. Like, that's kind of a lame king piece. So we're going to come back in here, and we're going to get rid of this arc. And we're just going to pull this arc. We'll go tangent to this line again. We're just going to use this line as kind of like a base. Hey, cooperate. There we go. So now this line is kind of like the base of our king's body. So what we can do is, I would like to see maybe like, let's go like 0.5 up. And then I don't necessarily want these to go out past the base, but I do want them past this part. So what I think I might do is I'll draw one line like that, and I'll draw another line like this. And then I can draw a line between the two, and I can line that up with this line. And now I can just go to the midpoint of that, and that can be where I want my king piece's body, like the center parts, to kind of reside. I don't necessarily want them to go all the way back down again, so we'll kind of go to there, and maybe we'll do like, let's do 3 of them. Now, an argument could be made that you should just use the, let's go 1/4 inch here. An argument could be made that you should just use the command to do a mirror, or not a mirror, I'm sorry, a pattern for these 3 features. And I mean, you could do it that way. You could make another feature and then make one of these and then like mirror it, or sorry, I keep saying mirror, pattern it up the chess piece. But in this case, I think it's just a little simpler to do it all in the one sketch. We're going to come in here and work on these fillets, or sorry, work on these insides with fillets as a separate piece, because I want to show a couple other ways you can do some of the fillets in here. So let's go ahead and make these like maybe, let's say they're like 3/8 wide. So you can do it that way, which is fine if they're all different. But if they're all the same, you might as well take advantage of your relations. And if you can have a make equal relation, now when you change these, they will all change together. This is just the width, not the location. In the same vein, we're going to make those equal, and we're going to set that distance to 1/4 inch. And now we just need to set this diameter, which again, I'm going to make collinear with that diameter. And also we'll do, no, actually I want this diameter to be lower. We'll put this one back there again. And what are you? I would like you to, I want you to be tangent. There we go. And this diameter, let's just go, let's do the depth. Let's do it that way. So we'll go here and we'll go 0.2 for the depth. Oh, and these 3 should be collinear as well. And now we have like this weird king piece. So the next thing we're going to do is make it look more like a king piece. And to do that, we're going to come up here to the top plane, apparently, because I have no idea what plane I had originally made this on. And we're going to go ahead and make a center line up the part and use this oval tool to make, let's see, how big is that? That's maybe a bit big. We're going to use this oval part to make a, like a little crown-like thing on the top. You know how like some chess pieces have like the little 4 facets on top? We're going to do something kind of like that. So we are going to take this guy and I'll just like stick, let's see, how do I want to do this? I want to go from here to here. And I'll just go like, I don't know, 0.4. And once we have this sketch right there in the middle, we can go through both sides. All right, so now we've got this cut out, and we'll just come up here and we will do a circular mirror to make it look a little bit more like a 4-pointed crown. So I already don't like how thick these are. So we're going to come in here and adjust that again. We're going to make them a little thinner. Let's do 1/4 inch. And that moves them down, but actually I kind of like that they're moved down now. And I would sort of like to make this longer. So that won't be tangent anymore. And I need this guy here not to be tangent anymore. Oh, whoops, no, sorry. I wanted that one to be tangent still. And we'll just give it a radius of like 0.75. So now we have a better looking king piece, and we still have these kind of ugly edges here. Now what might be kind of cool to do is I want to use fillets and chamfers on these. So on the inside corners, I am going to fillet them with the fillet tool. And the reason I'm going to do that is I just kind of want to see how it looks. And I want to see that this way, just because sometimes it is actually easier to do the fillets as separate separate features. And also sometimes having the fillets as separate features will allow you to more easily suppress them when you don't need them or when they're actually in the way. It's also nice because if you do your fillets towards the end, sometimes that will help SolidWorks rebuild faster if you don't have to be dealing with like trying to put features over fillets, which isn't necessarily ideal. And you also don't need to worry about things like having to move fillets after the fact when you change something, because that's super annoying. And if you can avoid that whenever you can, that will always be nicer for you. So now what I'd like to do is try to make kind of like an interesting shape. I've made an accidental flying saucer shape, but in the spirit of Bob Ross, that wasn't quite what I wanted, but I'm going to go with it. So happy accident, we have a flying saucer shape. And I'm pretty happy with that. You know, this is a, you know, depending on how you made it, this is a reasonably complex shape that we made fairly simply with just a few features because we were able to take advantage of the tools that SolidWorks has. Trying to make this with the extrusion and like stacking blocks and using fillets and chamfers, like you could do it. It would take a while though, and it wouldn't be that fun. Actually, let's do one more thing. If we fillet this, how cool does it look? Let's see here. Can we do like a 0.2? Yeah, I like that better. Maybe like a, can we chamfer this? Will it let me? Oh, it will. Oh, it will. Going full Bob Ross on this one. Oh, that's way better. Wow. I actually kind of like this. Anyway, this is just an example of how you can do circular revolve shapes. Again, you can use something like this for shafts or, you know, chess pieces, bolts, if you need to model something like that, anything cylindrical. And this also works for when you have something cylindrical that extrudes, or protrudes rather, off of something that's not round. Like let's say that you have like a trophy. Let's say you're making like a bowling trophy and you have, like the bottom is square and then you want to have a bowling pin on top. Like that's an excellent place that you would just have an extrusion for the square, and then you would have a revolve that would be the top part. So there's many ways you can use this. It doesn't just have to be for like a fully circular feature. You can use it as part of another like more complex part that has many different kinds of shapes on it. I hope you learned something from this. Let me know what was helpful in the comments below, or what questions you still have in the comments below. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.